Hello YouTubers! I will be going through this week's games, review last week's tips and leaderboard of our footy tip comp, and also go through my Brownlow Votes for season 2025. The top 5 of my Brownlow medal predictor after round 21 are: in top spot with 35 votes we have Dagos, Collingwood. In second spot we have B. Smith, Geelong with 30 votes. And in third spot with 29 votes we have N. Anderson, Gold Coast. In fourth spot with 26 votes we have C. Sarong, Fremantle. And to round out the top 5 on 24 votes we have N. Wanganing Moreira of St Kilda with 24 votes. These are my top 5 of the 2025 Brownlow medal votes after round 21. Looking at my round 21 tips, unfortunately I've got 2 games incorrect. Kilda vs Giants against the Doggies. The Doggies won by 88 points, and the Lions beat Collingwood, where I selected Collingwood. Therefore, from the 9 games, I had selected 7 out of 9 correct. Let's look at the Talking Effing AFL leaderboard. In top spot with 126 tips is Patrick L32. And then in second spot, you got Talking Everything AFL, me, with 124 tips. And 2 players tied in third spot with 122 tips are Red Dead Redemption and I Am Hacks. And to round out the top 5 with 118 tips, we have Potter 1. These are my top 5 of the Talking Effing AFL footy tips leaderboard after round 21. Before we continue, I would like to ask for a very small favour. If you enjoy this AFL content, please take a sec to subscribe to the channel and like the video. That would be awesome. Okay, let's return back to the show. First game of the week played on a Thursday night is between Hawthorn and Collingwood Magpies at the MCG on a Thursday night. The Hawks lost to the Crows last week by 14 points, and Collingwood also lost to the Lions last week by 27 points. The players in the mix for the Hawks are Bruce, Butler, McDonald and Warpel. For the Magpies, their players in the mix are Allen, Frampton and Parker. Where the game will be won at, it's the ruck midfield setup of the 2 respective sides. Big blow for the Hawks, Will Day out for the season. In ruck for Hawks, you got Meek with the midfielders of Nico, Morris, Ward, Airborne and Warpel. The ruck midfield setup for the Maggies are Cameron, Pendlebury, Long, Dacos, Cripps, side bottom. Just looking at the 2 sides, for the Hawks, losing Will Day, that's a big blow, whereas Collingwood's got players, gun players like Dacos, inside, outside leg kicking and decision making, side bottom, great passer, Scott Pendlebury, high IQ. Hawthorn got some good midfielders like your Warpel, Nico, but I expect Collingwood to win more stoppages and clearance and provide enough inside 50s to the forwards of Elliott, Marchik and Lipinski, plus Membrane and Schulz, and therefore I'm going to say Collingwood to beat Hawthorn by 15 points. The second game of the week is between Geelong and Essendon Bombers, played on the Friday night at GMHBA Stadium in Geelong. Last week the Cats had a good win against the Power, whereas Essendon lost to Sydney by 14 points. The players in the mix for the Cats are Clark, Hughes and Neva. For the Bombers, their players in the mix are Mezzi, Vicentini and El Houali. Just looking at the 2 sides, Geelong, a veteran experienced side gunning for another premiership. Essendon, so many injuries and got so many youngsters. That's just the class difference at this stage of the 2 sides. And Essendon, they got so many new players or first, second, third year players such as your Clarks, McMahon, Kako, Blackinson, Nguyen, Lowell. So many inexperienced in the Essendon Bombers side. Essendon struggling, bottom 6. Geelong, top 4, trying to gun for another premiership. And I say Geelong to beat Essendon by 55 points. The third game of the week is played between Richmond Tigers and St Kilda Saints on Saturday lunchtime at the MCG. Players in the mix for the Tigers are Kozinski, Gipkus and Blight. For the Saints, their players in the mix are Collard, Travagia and Showmaker. Where the game will be won at, it's look at the two rosters. Richmond, they got so many youngsters and they're rebuilding. They got 5 players taken in last year's draft playing. Armstrong, Fall, Hawthorn, Traynor and Sims, all inexperienced players. The Saints got some good experienced players playing this game. You got McRae, Steele, Higgins, Sinclair, Wilkie and Moreira. Saints have more class on their roster and their list. Richmond, so many youngsters and inexperienced, and due to that reason, I'm going to tip Saints to beat the Tigers in a competitive game by 14 points. Fourth game of the week, played on a Saturday afternoon, is between Brisbane Lions and Sydney Swans at the Gabba. Last week, the Lions had a good 27-point win against Collingwood in Melbourne, whereas the Swans beat the Dons at home by 14 points. The players in the mix for the Lions are Day, Tunsil and Joyce. For the Sydney Swans, their players in the mix are Francis, Roberts and Bowman. Where the game will be won at, it's the rugby footstep of the two respective sides. For the Lions in rugby, you got 4 with the midfields of Dunkley, Neal, Berry, McCluggage and Bailey. For the Swans, you got Grundy in the run, with the midfields of Heaney, Gordon, Warner, Florent and Lloyd. If you compare the two, Grundy against 4, I'd just give the chocolates to Grundy. Then you got Dunkley and Neal against Heaney and Gordon. I reckon that's pretty even between those two pairs. Then you got McCluggage against Chad Warner. Both good players. Say that's even, but it's on the respective wings. For the Lions, you've got Bay and Berry against Florent and Lloyd. And I expect those two Lions players to dominate. And therefore, I give the advantage to the Brisbane Lions ruck midfield setup. And they'll get more inside 50s to provide enough entries to their forwards of your Morris, Charlie Cameron, Hitwood. Therefore, the Lions will kick more goals than the Sydney Swans. And I say the Lions to beat the Sydney Swans by 19 points. The next game, played on the Saturday night, is between Carlton and Gold Coast Suns at Marvel Stadium. The players in the mix for the Blues are Binns, Boyd and O'Keefe. For the Suns, their players in the mix are Sexton, Moore and Jepson. Where the game will be won at, it's a ruck midfield setup of the two sides. For the Blues, you got Dick Cleaning in ruck with the midfields of Hewitt, Hollands, that's Ollie, Lord, Cripps and Akers. For the Suns, you got Witts in ruck with the midfields of Davies, Anderson, Rao, Fiorini and Weller. Just looking at the two sides, I like the Gold Coast ruck midfield setup. Witts is a gun ruckman. I got him top 3 in the league. They got gun midfields of Rao, Anderson. And then you can also rotate Humphreys. And just looking at the Suns midfield, I expect the Suns to win a lot of ball. And the ball will go in the forward line a lot. And they'll have lots of scoring shots, or opportunities I should say, where you got your forward like your Ben Long, your King, even Bailey Humphrey. And therefore, I expect the Suns to kick a big score. And I say the Suns to beat the Carlton Blues by 28 points. The next game, played in the Saturday night at Adelaide Oval, is between Port Adelaide Power and Fremantle Dockers. The players in the mix for the Power are Atkins, Moraz and Williams. For the Dockers, their players in the mix are Walker, Brady and Draper. Where the game will be won at, it's in the midfield and ruck. For the Power, you got Sweet in ruck with the midfields of Wines, Butters, Drew, Sin and Berry. For Fremantle, what a combination. You got Jackson ruck with the midfields of Sarong, Brayshaw, Young, O'Driscoll, O'Meara. Just looking at the Fremantle's ruck midfield, too powerful. Jackson, I expect to dominate and Sweet. Then you got like Sarong, Brayshaw, two-way runner midfields. Hayden Young, one of the best kickers in the league, top 5 in my opinion. Elite kicking, Young, Gordon, Dawson, these left footers, elite kickers. And I expect Fremantle to get more inside 50s, where they got their forwards, the 3 tools of Wass, Tracy, Amos, to kick a bag. And then you got the small midfields of Frederick, Switkowski and Bolton. I'm going to say Fremantle Dockers to beat Port Adelaide by 49 points. The next game, played on a Sunday afternoon, is between GWS Giants and North Melbourne at Monaco Oval in Canberra. The players in the mix for the Giants are Delana, Leake, Kuzetsky and the captain Toby Green. For the Roos, their players in the mix are Dawson, Payne and Phillips. Where the game will be won, North Melbourne has so many high-end young players but are still young, and the Giants are in final contention. They had an embarrassing loss against the Western Bulldogs on the Thursday night last week, and I expect a reaction from the Giants. Losing by like 80 to 90 odd points, I should say, was not good for the team, and they wanted to show a better game this weekend. And I expect the Giants to be all fired up this weekend, especially with the captain Green back. And the Giants got good players on their list. They just had a terrible off night. I don't expect this to repeat again for this game. And I say the Giants easily beat Melbourne Kangaroos by 48 points. The next game, played on a Sunday afternoon at the MCG, is between the Melbourne Demons and the Western Bulldogs. The D's had a magnificent 83-point win against the West Coast Eagles, whereas the Doggies had a magnificent 88-point win against GWS Giants on the Thursday night last week. The players in the mix for the D's are Lindsay, Adams and Campbell. For the Bulldogs, their players in the mix are Davidson, Hines and Cameras. Where the game will be won at, it's the Bulldogs forward, two forwards especially, and Melbourne's defence. In forward line, you got the two twin tower forwards of Norton and Darcy. Whereas for the D's in defence, you got McDonald and Turner. And just looking at that, I expect the two Doggies forward to kick massive bags. I reckon they'll kick about 4 goals minimum each and contribute 8 goals for the Western Bulldogs respectively, 4 each to Norton and Darcy. And I expect the Doggies to beat the D's by 35 points. The Doggies are in good form. They beat the Giants by 88 points last week. They beat the Bombers by 90 points the previous week. They're on a good run. They've been winning by big margins. Darcy, Norton on fire, and the Doggies to easily beat the D's in this game. Last game of the week is between West Coast Eagles and the Adelaide Crows, played at Optus Stadium, Perth, Western Australia, on the Sunday afternoon, Western Australian time. The players in the mix for the Eagles are Petricelli, Flynn and Rawlinson. For the Crows, their players in the mix are Laird, Nankervis, Pedler and Burgess. Where the game will be won at, got West Coast, who are bottom, and got LA Crows, who are top. The two sides are in different mode. The Crows are contending and trying to aim to win a flag with players that are experienced, whereas West Coast, bottom, rebuilding, so many youngsters. If you look at their list, so many first, second, third year players that include, or I should say consist of Reed, Cole, Hewitt, Devar, Gross, Jobe, Shanahan, Hoff, McCarthy, Chester and Edwards. So many youngsters. Crows starting to become more experienced players, with their rebuilding starting since 2019, and the rebuilding of the Crows has started for like 6 years now. So they're in their prime now to try to make consistent finals, just of the Crows' experience and the West Coast Eagles' inexperience. I expect the Crows to easily win this game by 62 points. My round 22 tips are the Maggies to beat the Hawks, the Cats to beat Essendon, the Saints to beat the Tigers, the Lions to beat the Swans, the two away sides of Gold Coast and Fremantle to win their respective games, the Giants to win their home game against North in Canberra, and the two away sides of the Bulldogs and the Adelaide Crows to win their respective away games. Thank you for watching my video, and it will be appreciated if you can subscribe and comment to my videos. Hopefully you enjoyed my video, and see you next time. Cheers or bye.